everyone. Look down, see the subscribe button? Go ahead and click it for me. I truly, truly appreciate your support. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Shannon Confidential. I am Shannon, your host, and Shannon Confidential is a podcast about life, love, and everything in between. And with all the crazy in the world, there is so much in between. And in between, all that in between is a whole hell of a lot of anger. And do I have the answer for you? It's Eileen Dylan. She's amazing. She's the emotional mastery for life coach. She's a best-selling author. She's a TED Talk speaker, professional speaker. She travels the world in her van. She's adorable. You're going to love her. One of the best things I saw when I was researching her is that she calls herself a recovering angry person. How many of you out there would love to be a recovering angry person or know someone that you want to be a recovering angry person? Well, she has your answers. Like I say, she's an author, a speaker. She has a TED Talks coming up. She has a whole new program coming up. She's going to tell you her whole story, and she's going to let us know how she became a recovered angry person so we too can get the skills that we need to not let anger take control all the time. There is a way to handle it and to recover from it. So I cannot wait to bring you Eileen Dylan. She is up next. You're going to love her. All right. I told you she was amazing. Here she is, Eileen Dylan. Eileen, thank you so much for being on China Confidential. We've been postponed a few times because life went left, went right, but you know how to master your emotions. So I'm sure you handled it beautifully. But we are finally here together now. Added sling. I'm sure we'll hear all about that, but I am so excited to bring everything that you and I have spoke about on the intro call. You're a recovering angry person. I still think that should be on a shirt. It's hysterical. And I want them to learn your story, how you got here, and where you're going from now. You have so much going on since the last time we spoke. So Eileen, you have the floor.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Well, so I got started with anger the really hard way, with emotions the hard way, which was to have a very rough childhood with an angry, abusive father who ended up, I couldn't express any emotions or I'd get into trouble. So I learned to hold on to them. And the problem with any or all emotional issues is that we hold on to the emotion. And the reason it's a problem is because emotions are energy. And as we know, if you think about electricity or water, emotions are made to move, Shannon. And when we say, oh no, I'm not gonna feel angry, I'm not gonna tell that person that I feel upset, whatever, we hold that energy in. And just as if we built a dam across a creek, that energy just starts building up, just like a lake would form on the other side of that creek. And the interesting thing, particularly with anger, which is our most active emotion, is that it's constantly looking to escape.
Yes.
So it creates a lot of problems for us because of this desire to escape, which we can talk about. Yeah. So I didn't know I was angry until I was almost 30 years old. I didn't know how much anger was inside of me. And then I had married when I was 19, and when I was 29, my husband came to me and my 10-month-old child was there, and he said, oh, so sorry, I'm not ready to be a father, and he left us. And I was so angry. I screamed at him. I said, what do you want me to do? Send her back? And wow. And what happened then is all this anger started just coming out of me.
Explosion.
Because whenever you hold it inside, it grows in power and in volume. Okay. And it took nearly 2 years. And it was the only other person in my life was my little child. And all this anger was just rolling over the top of her. And I was desperate. And so I started looking for what could I do to deal with all this. And that was back in the early 1970s. And back then, social scientists didn't study emotions separately from psychiatric diagnoses. Like if you had anger, it was just part of what happened with schizophrenia. And so, bottom line, there weren't any answers. But I was so desperate. I said, there has to be something. And I just kept looking and kept looking. And finally, through a therapy group I was in, I opened up. But I also started learning through some spiritual courses and through taking Aikido. I learned about energy. That's kind of like, it's an energy self-defense method like jujitsu or whatever. And it really focuses on energy. That's where I learned a lot about energy. And then I realized, oh, anger is energy. Emotions are energy also. And so I began from the direction of how do you work with energy? And I realized the big issue is we have to keep turning, making sure it moves through us. And all of us have learned, most all of us have learned not to let it move through us. We stop it for various reasons. And I've come to the conclusion now that almost every problem we have in life is due to held on to emotion, particularly anger. And I've recently, because of my TEDx talk, been investigating like what are some of the things that we actually have proof for. It negatively impacts our immune system, and it leads us to have heart problems and circulatory issues and diabetes. And there's proof that it held on to anger has a role to play in the formation of cancer and the development of it once you have it. So that's really powerful.
Anger is toxic in way more ways than I knew just before this interview started. That is really amazing scientific developments to know that anger and emotion can cause death through.
Yes, anger. If you hold on to anger long enough, it can kill you. And it's not anger itself. We have a tendency to think that anger is a negative emotion. It's not, any more than water is negative or electricity is negative. But when you pile it up and it starts looking for a way out, just like a water that would come through a dam that breaks, right? It can be incredibly destructive. It destroys the self-esteem. It gets in the way of us being successful in the world. We know that it messes up relationships a lot of times. It's a basis of road rage and a lot of international issues that we have and societal issues. It's really powerful. And it's because almost all of us have learned to hold on to it. And it's like out of control now. And part of the reason I'm talking to people about it is we don't have to have anger play that role in our lives. We can move into something new and actually have anger work for us and not against us.
Oh, I'm really anxious to hear that. First, I want to say the fact that back when you were having the anger and you had the small child and you said, I have to figure out a way to handle this. I commend you for that, because there's a lot of people who it would be really, really easy to point the finger and say, this isn't my fault. He's a jerk, and just never address the issue that was burning inside of you. So congratulations, just be proud of that. And where that's taking you to do the studies. And you're right there. The anger was part of something else. And then to say everybody holds it in, they don't want to be angry, they don't want to let anybody know they're angry. First of all, anger is like saying you should never cry. It's a human emotion. It's fine. When anger tilts over the top is when you don't know how to handle it, or you don't know how to stop crying. It's like any emotion. You have to learn and understand it, and then it helps you process it. And you've done so much research on that. I had no idea the illnesses that directly stem from anger.
Right.
I find that's fascinating.
Yes. And You know, the other one of the reasons that we haven't worked with anger effectively, or any all emotions literally behave the same because they're energy. And if you know, you can't create or destroy energy, so you can't create or destroy anger or love or fear. It's there, and what we need to do is work with it. Um, but the issue that we've had is everybody thinks, oh, emotions are difficult. They're complex. They're really hard to work with. And another message I have is they are so simple. You can teach this stuff to kids. I have, you know,
Yeah.
and it's so simple. It's basically we have energy. Well, let me back up a minute.
Okay.
Uh, what I've also learned in this 50-year investigation I've been doing is that the way I have come to see things is that we all live in a big giant school. That's what Earth is. We all came here to learn. And how we learn is we have experiences, and those experiences push us to look at things and deal with things, right? And every time we have an experience, an emotion or more than one emotion will come up with that experience. Now, the reason the emotions are there is because they are a gift to us. Every emotion has a message, and that message helps us to learn what our experience is bringing us. And as soon as if we don't learn what the experience is bringing us, we just go over and over and over the same thing all the time in a different form with a different cast of characters, but it's the same issue.
Yes.
However, the second you learn the lesson, it's over and you're free to go on to other things. And that is an amazing thing. Okay, so let's like take this, I don't have it all figured out yet, but a week ago today, I fell going up the stairs in my daughter's home and broke my arm right here near my
Ouch.
shoulder. And it was
Ouch.
extremely painful. And I don't know what's going to happen with it yet. I may still have surgery. But let me tell you some of the kinds of things that have happened. A woman I know who's a dentist said, let me tell you how us dentists help people to deal with pain without taking narcotics. And she gave me this schedule for taking Advil and Tylenol together. I've only taken 3 narcotics in a week, and that was the first 2 nights when it was overwhelming. But other than that, the pain has been handled. So I have that gift.
Okay.
I'm also at my daughter's house. Now, normally, as you know, I'm traveling the country in my RV,
Yes.
but
I think it's adorable.
I came to visit my daughter for a week. I may stay a few months, but nonetheless, I have a granddaughter who's busy making applications to become to get into medical school.
Oh,
And this day, she's taking an exam to become a nurse's assistant so she can get hands-on experience. So
well, good
she's
luck
right
to you.
here, and she's taking care of me. And she's saying to me, Grammy, we do not want you to re-injure your arm. Please call on me for whatever you want, even if you wake me up. Now, what I realized the other day when she told me that is that's a level of love and care I have never experienced in my life,
Oh,
because my birth mother never, she was very young and she did not take good care of us. My father was able to get custody of 2 little girls in 1945 as a single father. He was able to prove that she
probably
was not
most
doing a good
unheard of.
job.
Yeah.
So if this is a giant school, then part of my lesson in breaking my arm is to experience being cared for at this deep level that I've never experienced before. And it is such a treasure, you know, it is
Yeah.
so fantastic.
That beautiful message takes the anger or the pain away because that just makes it like, thank God this happened. Now I've experienced this.
Yes, well, there is part of me that says, gee, I would have liked to do it an easier way.
Maybe your
but,
toe. I don't know.
but it seems like it wasn't totally up to me.
Yeah.
It, yeah, it seems like wasn't really up to me to decide that.
Yes.
And so
Just
but
found the
it's
lesson.
been such a wonderful learning for me that I am grateful and I am learning.
Oh, yeah, you learned pain management. You learned how to be cared for. Probably learning a whole bunch of patience.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, all of which came from a broken arm. But I am sorry it happened to you. Don't get me wrong. I
Yeah.
do hope that you don't need surgery and, it's able to heal quickly and you're able to get, back on your feet and traveling because you have a lot coming up.
Yes, yeah, I do have a lot coming up, but when we're in terms of emotions, I don't do much of anger anymore, so I didn't feel angry about falling. I was thinking this morning, I haven't bad tripped myself. I haven't said, oh, that was a stupid thing you were doing, or you weren't careful enough, or whatever. I observed it. But once you master emotions, you're not really interested in being in judgment of yourself when things occur.
That's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
beautiful because that's half the problem, judging yourself constantly, whether it's be over the fall or appearance or how hard you work. That self-judgment is just debilitating.
Right. And so I'm experiencing this as not only love coming in from outside, but me learning to love myself too. And that turns this into, it doesn't resolve everything. I'm still going through it, but it makes it an awful lot easier and an awful lot kinder. There's one thing I talk with people a lot about, just in connection with this, Shannon, and that is that a lot of times we motivate ourselves, or we try to motivate ourselves by getting angry with ourselves or making a judgment of ourselves or pushing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a psychotherapist now for 50 years. And I just want to go on record saying I've never seen anybody grow effectively when negative has been thrown at them. We grow when we are feeling loved and safe and willing to try new things. And so that's the atmosphere. And we live life by moving from the inside out, which means that if I'm loving inside of myself, if I'm caring for myself, then not only will I be more loving and caring to people outside of me, but they will express that to me also.
That makes so much sense. Think about it. If you're at home, say you're at home, or let's just say you're in a marriage or a relationship and it's bitter and there's fighting, that just keeps building and building and building. But when there's that nurturing, that love, that's the one thing you can't wait to share. And then people see that. And then when you're around that, they feel it and then they give it out. It's like paying it forward constantly. Or
Right.
if you're not in a relationship and you're at work and your boss is constantly writing you, micromanaging you, just as his or her thumbs constantly over you, how do you blossom? You're just going to be squashed. And how do you want to try if you're always getting yelled at? But if you're congratulated or someone approves of what you're doing or allows you to grow or congratulates you when you do something well, you want to work harder, you want to do it more. It just feeds better. And that makes so much sense what you just said.
Well, it's even more effective when you do it for yourself. I've found that I don't really need a lot of appreciation coming in from outside of me, because, but it does. I made a change in the early 90s. I was writing a series of books for parents to help them understand how to help their children with emotions. And I came across this one resource, someone who was talking about love. And the message was that love is love is love. And it doesn't matter if you get love from outside of you or you give it to yourself, it's still love. But what does matter is whether you choose love as the principle on which you live your life. that whatever happens, you ask yourself, what's the most loving way I can see this? What's the most loving way I can work with this? What's the most loving way I can relate to you?
I
And
like that.
yeah, and so the author of that invited people to make that choice. I made that choice. Now, you know, for all my whole life, I felt, you know, rejected and abandoned and not connected and so forth. And uh, I used to cry myself to sleep because I said I didn't have any friends, you know, that sort of thing. But making that choice in the early 90s has transformed my life.
And you made that choice in here.
Yeah, I made it inside of myself, and I stopped trying to look outside. Do you love me? Will you love me? What do I have to do to earn your love? I stopped looking for that, and I started going, okay, what can I do to love, and what can I do to love this person, and how does love feel, and how can I love myself, and all this kind of stuff. And you know, I've brought a couple of my grandkids on my RV in my RV for trips, and the youngest one was 10 when she came, and she started in the 2 weeks she was with me going, oh yeah, Grammy and her friends. She just has friends everywhere she goes.
That's
You know,
so cute.
but that was such a transformation.
Yes.
And so often we do feel like we have to find love outside of us, and we can spend a lifetime looking for it because that's not where it is.
Nope. No, and I do believe when you have that inner love, that inner appreciation, that inner acceptance of who you are, you're confident in who you are, you believe in who you are, you love who you are, you've forgiven yourself for maybe the parts that weren't all that great, and that self-forgiveness is also love. I just believe that sends a whole different message out to the universe, and that's the message you want to rebound, and it will come back to you.
Yep. And and again, it's not complicated. And you don't have to look after anybody but yourself,
Yeah.
which
And
is
that's not a selfish thing at all.
no. Well, it, no, it's not at all selfish, and a lot of people do think it's selfish. But we have a responsibility. One of the ways I like to talk about it is we come to this earth, each of us, in most people come in separate bodies, right? And we come here as learners and as explorers, and we're exploring how love and not love operate, right? So we get ourselves into situations of love, or we get ourselves into situations of not love, and we learn from that. And when we learn, because we're all connected, we all learn, right? And so when I take care of myself so that I feel good and I feel loved, I'm actually adding to the positive good of everybody and not just me.
Yes, the basic, the easiest way to explain that is when you're around someone who is positive and nice and loving and kind, that energy. How many times do you hear people say, "Oh my God, your happiness is contagious. Your laughter is contagious. You're so loving. You're so nurturing. You're just the greatest friend." This people love that. They want that around them. They feel that. That is such a you can transfer that feeling right onto somebody.
Well, yeah, and it happens automatically. You don't even think about it. Now I get feedback from people of, oh, you're so calm. I can feel your love, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of an amazing. I mean, it's has been an amazing transformation for me. And the good part is, it's available to everybody. We can
It's
all do
free.
it. Yeah.
It's in you. It's in you. It's in all of us. We just have to wake up and realize we have this amazing ability to change our entire world through love.
Right. Well, most of us don't think of ourselves as co-creators of our own lives. You know, one of the things that's been a little bit challenging for people to learn is that we're all responsible for our lives. Now, I used to teach courses like for teenagers, and I'd mention the word responsibility and everybody would groan, because parents have a tendency, you have to take responsibility. But I have taught them that responsibility actually is the road to choice. Like when my son was growing up, I one time went to him and said, I need you to clean up this room. And he got really angry with me. So I tried another approach and I said, what's your plan for cleaning up your room? And he was a good kid. He went, I don't know. And I said, oh, well, too bad if you don't have a plan, we're going to have to use mine. Right?
There you go. I like that.
And so we would use it. And each time I would ask him this. Well, by the time he was a teenager, he was coming to me saying, my plan for the weekend is this. Is that okay with you?
He wanted to.
And he had so many more choices available because he was taking that responsibility. Do you follow?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a mom of two. Oh yeah. Yes. Yes. Because if they that responsibility, the word that made them cringe, also gave them so much freedom if they use that to their advantage or to their benefit.
Right. And they didn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect if you're responsible. You just, if something goes wrong, like you were saying earlier, I could say somebody did this to me or somebody, whatever, I could blame. But that doesn't do anything except get me angry and other people angry with me. But when I take responsibility and say, actually I was wearing a pair of slippers that somebody had cautioned me not to wear, and that one of them came off, right? So so I threw my slippers away finally. I took responsibility of throwing them away.
Again. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there was nobody really to blame. It was my experience. I did have a part in it, and I can change that part. And when we change our part, anytime you change your part in a system, the whole system changes. Either it changes or we get out of the system. Like if it's a work situation, for example, that you're not happy in, and you change yourself, you may get pushed out of that system, but usually it's only so you can get into a better one.
This is a perfect example. I had a job, loved it, but no matter how hard I worked, no matter what I did, no matter what I implemented, tried to earn my keep, never asked for anything that I didn't bring something to the table for. But when you're constantly held down and held down and held down, I had to look inside, realize my value, realize what I was worth, and I was worth more than that. So I left, and now I'm doing what I love. This is a perfect example.
And what kinds of, here's the interesting question, because most people think there are really horrible downsides to it. What kinds of prices did you pay for making that shift?
Well, income. I quit my job, that stopped. But with that said, I wouldn't, if I had to do it all over again, I'd still do it.
You'd do it earlier, I'll bet.
I've never been happier. What?
You'd do it earlier, I'll bet. You wouldn't take so long.
Yes, I actually, because, and here's another emotion, I didn't out of fear and guilt, because I truly love the people I work with, and I didn't want to leave them behind. I loved doing what I did. And then there was the fear of leaving, and then what? And then what? But eventually I did put myself first. I put my value first, my love, my self-respect first, and conquered my fear and said, I'm out. And life has a funny way of working itself out. I've never been happier.
Well, but that's really key when we listen to what our heart is telling us. To, as I often tell people, we're not supposed to be miserable here on the earth. We're actually supposed to be able to have a good time. The earth is a really exceptional place. It's beautiful. It's supportive. We get fast feedback, so we can grow really fast. And so we're supposed to be having a good time. And lately I've been telling people, if you're not feeling good, that's a sign that whatever you're doing isn't right for you. Start looking for what could be more right for you.
Yeah.
And that's been really helpful. I also was at the Soul Treat conference of the Wellness Universe in Boone, North Carolina, a couple of weeks ago. Beautiful, beautiful place. The trees are all turning and everything.
Yes.
And I gave a speech and met with a number of people. And one of the things I found myself saying to people when I was working with them individually is, I want you to think in terms of wherever we were before we came to this earth. Someone was sitting there and had a piece of material, and let's call it God cloth. It's a cloth made out of the essence of God, something that's bigger than us. All right. And as every soul comes to the earth, that person stamps out a piece of the God cloth and stuffs it in that soul. Right. Okay. So when you do something, when I do something, however I treat myself, that's how I'm also treating God.
That's powerful.
Right. Because God is inside of me. And sometimes the way we treat ourselves is terrible. We'd be ashamed to have God know we were treating. And it's you don't actually have to believe in God for this. I choose God just because it's a shorthand way of saying something that's greater than me, something that's bigger. And so we have that something bigger in us, and it deserves being taken well care of. And anytime we're not kind or loving to ourselves, we're also not being kind or loving to that aspect of us.
Very well said, Eileen. Very well said. That's a whole different perspective. That puts it in check.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, I'm telling you, I could listen to you for hours. I loved our talk when we first started speaking and on the intro call. And I wanted to ask so many questions, but I wanted to keep it so real and like in the moment that I waited till this moment to actually go deeper into what you do. And it's absolutely fascinating.
Well, it certainly is for me. I've been doing it for, I was 29. This month I'm turning 79. So it's been 50 years.
Happy birthday. You're
Thank
adorable.
you.
You're
Thank
fantastic.
you. Yeah. And and I'm on a mission, by the way, Shannon. I'm on a mission to share this information because I don't find a whole lot of other people talking about it this way. I, as a psychotherapist and as an angry person myself, I was not so interested in theory as I was in things that would work. And so I'm very practical in my orientation. I want relief. And I find a lot of times the way people deal with emotions, particularly anger, it sets us up to keep going over the same angers, the same situations over and over again, because I came across an article recently, and experts were saying, don't watch as much media and be kinder to yourself. And all these things are fine, but they don't get at the root cause. The root cause is the same thing that happens when we set up an electrical circuit that resists the movement of the electricity.
Yeah.
That's resistance, and the whole circuit can explode because of resistance. And when we hold energy inside of ourselves, that's creating resistance. We talk about, well, life is about suffering. I'm of the conviction that suffering is about resisting. And
I certainly don't think it's about suffering. Sometimes it's sad, but that's not.
Well, it is suffering it is suffering for a lot of people, and I suffered for a lot of years.
Yes,
because I thought things were happening to me, and that I couldn't do anything about it. And so now I go, no, it doesn't have to be suffering. Suffering is created when we resist what's happening, when we resist the emotions, when we resist the flow of life. That's when we suffer.
Gorgeous way to say something like that. To use it's just so clear. you state it so clearly.
Thank you.
And Eileen, you have said the books that you have written, the books in your past that you've written, the talks that you've done, you've helped teenagers, you've helped kids. You were just at this one location in Boone, North Carolina, and North Carolina is where my brother lives, so I know how beautiful it is over there. And I promise everybody, everything that Eileen has mentioned, I'll make sure I get links to it, links to her previous books, links to places that she's gone, links to her. If you would like to, have her come talk to, what would you say would be your normal, do you talk to businesses? Do you talk to schools? Or do you cater it to what they need?
Well, more the latter. One of the ways I answer people when they ask me what my plan or structure is that I'm in the fortunate situation where I can follow my heart. So, so I do what my heart brings me, right?
Okay.
And so I'm part of my heart is that I have wanted to do a TEDx talk, which I mentioned to you before the show. And I've been working on that for a few months now. It's called Rethinking Anger. And I'm going to be delivering that on December 4th in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Okay.
As long
That's
as
so
the
exciting.
Yeah. So, and I wanted to ask you and your listeners or your viewers to support me in that. I've never done this process before, but what I'm told is you give the speech, they record it, and then the TEDx site, which you have the URL for, they put it up on the internet. And then, as we all know, because we've watched these speeches, then people are invited to watch them. So I just want to ask everybody to watch, leave comments, and share. That's what that would help me so much.
100%. I will definitely link everybody up. I'll make sure the date is set in all the show notes. So, and keep me posted do reminders.
Yes.
I'll remind everybody, hey, remember Eileen Dylan, she's coming up, her TED Talk's coming up. I think there is so much to be learned individually, us as people, on just how to understand all of this, because sometimes it's so simple, but it's outside of your perspective because you're too close to it. Yeah. But when you listen to someone else, you have that light bulb moment and you're just like, oh, now I get it. And then that change the attitude, change the outcome,
right,
kind of kicks in. And all it took was to just listen to someone else's perspective that gave you perspective, and it just makes it better. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, it definitely does. I've made my living doing that. Just asking people, could you look at it this way instead of this way? Because, and this has been a concern of mine. We've all, why do we have problems, say, with anger? Is because we've all been learning the same stuff about emotions, or not learning the same stuff about emotions, for generations. And so if you don't understand something, I remember a quote way long ago that children don't get hurt only by what they don't know about, right? So we don't know about emotions, and it's so simple. I don't mean this to sound dramatic, but the rest of my life is dedicated to telling people how simple it is, what I've been able to learn, how you can transform your life just by listening to the message of emotions. All right, for example, a lot of us feel lonely, and we may face that coming up in the holidays that are coming up. Mm-hmm. Now, we've been taught, the culture believes, that loneliness has to do with us being alone. Well, I don't think so, because you can feel lonely in a crowd, you can feel lonely in a marriage. Doesn't have to do with being alone. What does it have to do with? Energy. It has to do with the fact that I have more of my energy going out than coming in. If I'm a woman staying at home with 4 kids and I'm looking after them all day, I may feel very lonely in that task because I'm putting my energy out to the children all day. Now, how do I bring energy back in so that I don't have to stay lonely? Because this is all self-correctable, right?
Yeah.
It's to do something I have a talent for, right? Because that brings a whole pile of energy in.
Brings that
So,
happiness in.
right. And if I spend a week taking care of my children, I only have to bring 3 hours of doing my talent into me to make it
Compensate.
level out, right? So
That is
it's
such a beautiful thought. Just again, so simple. So simple.
right. And so people ask me when I'm traveling in my RV, aren't I lonely? And I go, nope, I'm not lonely. I may have little glimpse of it. You can't get rid of emotions because
Yeah.
they're energy, and you can't get rid of energy. But it used to be that it was huge. Emotions were huge in my life, and now they're there, but they're small. And when they come up, I work with them, and I go, oh. So I'll give you an example. I went to Ouray, Colorado, which is this. It's called Little Switzerland. It's a city, a little town down in the mountains. And what I really love about
Sounds
them,
lovely.
yeah, they have a hot springs in Ouray. With the city has set up 6 pools, 2 cold and 4 warm.
Okay.
And if you're 75 or older, it's free. So I went out of my way to go there
I'm going to all of them.
because it means I could go in and out at will. Okay, so the day I left, I don't generally do fear, right?
Okay.
But the day I left, it was pouring rain, and you have to come out in your van up a winding road, and it's a 2-lane road leading out of Ouray through the mountains back and forth
Oh yeah.
with with the cliff going straight down on your right, and it was pouring rain,
That's
right?
nerve-wracking.
And so I started, feeling just a little bit of fear. And I went, okay, Eileen, I talked to myself out loud. Okay, Eileen, you know that you know how to deal with fear. So I asked myself, what if I had a written guarantee that I'm going to be all right? What would I be focusing my attention on then? Right?
Exactly.
And I said, well, I'd be focusing my attention on the beauty and looking around me and knowing that I'm going to make it through here. This is just something I'm going through. And I calmed right down,
That
right?
is
It's so
so
fast,
true. That's so true.
right?
It makes me so happy to hear someone else say that, because I think so many things are missed in life out of fear. And fear is just a possible maybe of what may or may not happen. So if it may not happen, why are you even afraid of it? I've never understood that.
Well, fear, fear starts in the amygdala in our brain, and um, all that we know about it is it started many, many eons ago. And why did we need fear? Because of saber-toothed tigers,
It's survival. Fear,
right?
fear, fear is survival. It gets your body going. Your
Right.
cells
And
do what they're supposed to do.
so human beings wanted to hide in caves, and so did saber-toothed tigers. So you needed the ability
Yeah.
to either get ferocious and chase the saber-toothed tiger out, or run like the devil and get out of there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so what I often say to people is the problem with fear today is the absence of saber-toothed tigers, because those were real.
So true. Oh
Those
my
were
God, I love this. You think just like me, Eileen.
oh good. Well, those were real experiences. The other part of it is when the tiger was dealt with, then you could go back to being relaxed and not in fear. But today's fear is mostly stuff we create in our own mind that may or may not be real, that very often has to do with going to the past or the future. And the only time we have power is in the present. So we take ourselves out of our power, right?
Yes.
And so if only we had saber-toothed tigers, we would have a chance to let down once in a while. But
Yeah.
instead,
It's
we
just
go
a
into,
reality. There's just a false reality now.
right. Instead, we go into anxiety because we're fearful for so long. So if we can find a way to take a break from fear, then life is very, very different. And realizing that most of the fear that anybody experiences right now is not even real, it's self-generated, can make a huge difference in that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, that makes all the sense in the world.
Right.
It's actually that simple. If it is not saber-toothed tiger worthy of your fear, face it, let it go. It doesn't
Right.
even have a place. It's not fight or flight. You're not about to die by getting eaten by an actual tiger, not the thought.
Uh-huh.
Let it go.
Well, like we go back to your changing job story, you see, some of the fears that you had were fears that you set up for yourself, imagining how people were going to respond and whether you were going to make it or not. And those are reasonable things to look at, but we don't want to stay there. We want to keep that energy moving. And you just said the magic words, which is facing it. There's a term called facing fact that I learned from a yogi from India many years back. And he said facing fact is the road to freedom. When you look at things squarely for what they really are, then you're set free.
Yes. Yes. You have to look. You can't just listen. You can't just believe what someone's saying. You have to look. You have to research. You have to look inside of yourself or wherever it is to find your answer.
Well, like I said to you before, one of the ways that I do that is to talk to myself out loud. It's an advantage to be in my RV because I can talk to myself in there. I just have a little dog with me. But I just go, okay, Eileen, what is the real issue? What is your concern? What's the worst thing that could happen? What else could happen? You can just talk to yourself and answer out loud. Something about hearing my own voice saying those possibilities really does set me free.
That's lovely. And you mentioned, do people ask if you're lonely when you're, traveling this beautiful world we live in by yourself? First of all, how could you be lonely with so much beauty around you? And the second, I get that you're not, because I don't want to say I'm a homebody as much as I'm a homebody, or I actually did a podcast with someone else and I realized is the grandest things that I've ever done. I'm really more of an introvert, but I am so comfortable in my own skin that I don't have to have people talking to me, people around me. I'm not validated by what's going on around me. I don't need validation.
That's wonderful.
I love who I am. I love my reflection, even the most imperfect parts of my reflection. It's still me, and I'm proud of that because yes, I've made mistakes, and yes, I've done things that, like, maybe, I wish I could turn back time, but I learned from them. And that's
the
the
key.
beauty in it. And I can't carry every mistake. I've got to learn, I've got to forgive, and I've got to move on. And I just don't mind that silence when you're by yourself. First of all, I'm constantly talking to myself. If anybody had a camera on me, they'd probably think I was a lunatic, but I don't care. Just, I'm very at peace when I'm alone. I have a great time when I have tons of friends and I have a most loving family around me. And don't get me wrong, I love people, but I have no problem just being with me, myself, and I.
That's really wonderful. As you were saying earlier, you and I are quite a lot alike.
Yes.
People, I drive for hours in my RV with no sound. I create speeches in my head. I sing songs. I work out issues. I'm very, very busy. Sometimes I do talk with friends if I'm in a good location. Yeah. But by and large, I don't listen to music or anything. I just am alone with myself. And I love it. It's such a precious thing. And I get a lot of inspiration, just to think or to ask the question, well, what could this be? What do I need to look at here? What would help me understand this? That's really fantastic for me. And I realize not everybody's like that. Not everybody will enjoy that. And so there's nothing wrong with not being that way. But I really do enjoy it. And there's nothing wrong with spending time alone.
No, not at all. That doesn't make you an introvert. It doesn't make you weird. It doesn't make you the next Unabomber. No, it does not at all make you, it's not wrong in any way. Just unfortunately, we have a society that, with all the judgment out there, that people think if they're alone on the weekend, that somehow they're not as good as someone else that's out and doing this and doing that. And that's just because you've been taught that. That is not fact.
Uh-huh.
So, people just need to relax on themselves, show some love.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's so satisfying. I was frantic. I felt abandoned. I felt excluded. I felt
Those were real.
rejected. And I've had 3 marriages. One of my last husband died 5 years ago. I was a single parent for 20 years. I've been through a lot of things, and I didn't always go through them sweetly and nicely. But they were I call it my personal laboratory. It was my personal laboratory where I learned things that then allowed me to change. And once you change and learn, you don't have to go back there again.
That is so true. That is such a noticeable thing. Once you have that change, that light bulb moment, that evolution, that whatever you want to call it, to get your mind space to a different space, a more positive space, you don't even have to look back. You don't even want to. You don't even think of looking back. You've just moved on. And that
Right.
There's so much beauty in leaving it behind.
Right. And I think that's something we don't really, again, we haven't been taught. I encourage people, look, the world's a big giant school. Something comes up in your life, turn around and embrace the learning in it. Get very dedicated to learn whatever is there. You may not see it at first, but just keep asking. That's another thing a lot of us don't do. We don't ask for help. And I certainly didn't. Years ago, I was dating a man who was brilliant, and he was able to not work, and he was writing. And I was a young single mother, and he lived in another county. So a lot of our relationship was on the phone. And he would call and talk to me and go, "Oh, I had such a great day of writing today. I asked my guides to help me, and they did this and they did that." He told me that for several days. And finally, one day I said to him, "John, are you telling me that you ask people you can't see to help you and they help you?" And he said, "Well, yeah." And I said, "John, I can't ask people I can see to help me." And
That's awesome.
he said, "You ought to try it." And so I didn't until I had my back up against the wall a few weeks later. And then I just said, "Okay, whoever's out there, please help me."
Help me.
And I got immediately peaceful, immediately.
Yes.
And it put me on a whole new thing, because I think another issue we have regarding emotions and life is that we feel so alone, like, oh my gosh, this is all up to me. And it isn't. It's not all up to each of us. And we can ask for help, and you don't have to see who's there, who's giving you help. But just like my friend gave me the schedule for how to do medication for breaking my arm, within 24 hours of me breaking my arm, I had a schedule. It was amazing. And
I'm so glad you're not in pain anymore.
right. And years ago, my son broke both of his arms within 3 weeks of each other. And
Oh my God.
someone then told us about something called silica that comes from horsetails, and it helps your bones heal faster. My son, who was the person who got the original formula, as soon as he heard that I was injured, ordered that off of Amazon and had it sent to me so that I could start healing.
Talk about coming full circle.
Right. But what I really am trying to emphasize here is that we feel alone, but once we start operating the way we've been talking about here today, we're so not alone, and you don't always know where the help is going to come from.
No.
And it's important to realize that that the universe, if you will, wants to help us.
Yes.
it's not like we're taking from anybody. It's like you can ask, please help me. I need help here.
Yeah,
And
like, those cliches. The world has a funny way of working things out. Throw it out to the universe, it'll answer you. Those are little terms, but to me, I believe them to be 100% fact.
well, not only have I lived that way, but I've taught, thousands of people over 50 years of being a psychotherapist. And I've seen it work. Like there was one woman who had been held hostage in her own home by some home robbers, right?
Oh,
And it traumatized her. And she wanted to sell the house and get out of the neighborhood. And it had been like 8 or 9 months since this event happened. And she was a nervous wreck. And she came for therapy. And I put her on a program of starting to ask for help. She had that house sold in 2 weeks
that's so
just
beautiful.
to ask for help,
Yes.
right? And to envision what she wanted instead of focusing on the problem, to focus on where she wanted to go.
Yes.
That's what she needed to
Yes.
do.
The power of that positive energy is so powerful. Whether
Yeah.
you're dealing with an illness, people say all the time, my father had a form of cancer. We have friends now going through different forms of cancer. And I'm not saying, no, by no means, let me just asterisk this. I am not a doctor. I'm just saying, I have seen when you keep a positive attitude and you just trust in what's going to happen, and you just keep that mindset and keep that strength in love and just positive vibe, that they come out on the other side much better than the doom and gloom of worry and fear, and because that and anger that this happened to you, because it makes it worse. It's not maybe going to solve everything. It's not a guaranteed cure, but it's better.
Yes, I actually have an example of that. A month or so before I took off in my RV in 2017, I was diagnosed with a small, slow-growing breast cancer.
Oh,
And the doctor said, let's cut it out. And my husband had died of cancer the previous year. And I was not really impressed with the efforts to heal him. I saw mostly he was just made comfortable. And I'm more of an alternative medicine person. So I said, doctor, I'd like to try to heal this first. And he said, well, it's slow growing enough. You could take a year to do that, but don't take more than a year because it grows at 2 to 4% every year. In the second year, it'll be 4 to 8%. And I stayed in contact. I had a mammogram taken every 4 times during that year.
okay.
And I was traveling cross country, so he put me in contact with the head of breast oncology at surgery at Duke Medical Center, and that turned out to be my doctor. And she was incredibly supportive working with me. Now I worked with diet and Qigong, which is a Chinese energy medicine.
Okay.
And I did this, and supplements, and we call those essential oils.
Okay.
And so I did this for a year. And I told my children at the end of the year, either the cancer will be gone or I'll have it cut out. Well, it was not gone at the end of the year, but it did not grow at all during that year.
Yes, that's key.
So I was very happy with it. I had it cut out. So I was not required to do chemo or radiation. It did not spread. It did not cause me a problem. It's been cut out since March of 2018, and I'm considered cancer-free at this point.
It's very,
So
very
it's
good.
that's, as my husband who died, he was a neurosurgeon. He would say, well, that's just one example. You can't generalize that. But I will say I'm one example that what you're talking about did work.
I've seen it. I've seen it. So I believe in it. Put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do believe in it. So I know you had your book. You're a best-selling author. You are just a bundle of talent and knowledge. And now you're doing this TED Talk, and you have a whole nother program that you're doing, and that's going to be, your TED Talk is going to be in February. This new program is in January, and you will just take more of this in a different direction. Are you changing up the way you teach? What's this evolvement
Well,
of the new program?
well, it's been a little bit of a battle inside of myself. There's some programming in me that said, "Oh, you're retired." And yet I'm working as hard now as I ever did. I'm working with individual coaching clients. I'm giving speeches. I'm on podcasts. I'm writing another book on rethinking anger to go along with the TED Talk. I didn't publish, but have written a book on ending manipulation, which is another whole
Yes, we
topic.
talked about that, and that's a big deal.
Yeah. Because in my view, we are designed to outgrow manipulation by adulthood. And as I say, kind of tongue in cheek, I think most people have missed that memo.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I already have one book, Emotions in Motion, published. And then this, in the past year and a half, I participated in 3 collaborative books with the Wellness Universe, one on self-care, one on happiness, and one on achievement. And I wrote a chapter in each of those collaborative books, and they all reached Amazon bestseller status.
And people can find links to all of this through your contact information?
I'm working on it. Yes, it's really hard to keep up with things. You can learn about those books on the wellnessuniverse.com. I think that's the fastest way to get to it. But I just hired a VA to get this stuff working again, because my previous VA retired.
Okay.
Bless her. She did a really great job. But in the meantime, I've been working to simplify. So this course I'm talking about is called Anger Mastery Lifestyle Mentoring and Accountability.
Yes.
And the purpose of that is to help other helpers in particular who want to learn to become anger masters themselves and then teach other people how to do it. And that's the purpose of it.
Teaching people to just keep paying it forward. Just make the world less angry. One talk at a time, one teach at a time, one conversation at a time. Right.
And you do have the link for that. So I'm very excited about that. It's the thing about it, the accountability part is that very often when people sign up for courses, they don't finish them. And so this is designed to drip material out to the participants and allow them to get feedback. They get individual attention in a group mentoring, hot seat type experiences, plus they can contact me directly with questions that they have. And in the meantime, the completion of the assignments is being monitored technologically, and you get feedback. Okay, you didn't get this done, you need to get this one done so you can finish. And I took a course like
online.
Yeah, I took a course like this myself. What an amazing difference, because I'm not forgotten. Nobody goes, oh, well, you bought the course and you didn't finish it. Big deal. They go, hey,
it's only good.
You didn't finish it.
It only benefits you if you actually finish. So finish.
Exactly.
You're not about, okay, yeah, you paid for it, but I really want you to learn something from it.
Right. Well, and I am so dedicated. Our world can change when people understand what we've been talking about today. And it can change so fast.
I was going to say quickly, very quickly.
Very quickly. And we're at a time, as you know, Shannon, where we've gone through this big breakdown thing that COVID has assisted. And as an individual therapist, when somebody is ready to make big changes, the first thing they do is break apart. They fall apart. It's a whole process. We've just gone through it in the world. And the design is that it makes space for new ways of living. And my conviction is those new ways of living are more energy-based and more loving.
Yes.
And so there could not be a better time to learn about this than right now, and it'll set us all up for where we're going, for the culture that we're evolving into.
Oh, from your mouth to the universe ears. Yes. Be such a better place. And it's so possible.
Right.
It's not a dream or, oh yeah, that's good. No, it's possible, people.
Right. And all we have to do is one person at a time look after ourselves. And then we will, just like there's talking about with COVID, we'll reach a critical mass and pop, that's the way it'll be. And there are a lot of people working on this. I think the edge I have, or the special thing that I have, is the practicality of it. The fact that you don't have to pay thousands of dollars to go to therapy or coaching or whatever. You can do this yourself. In my book, Emotions in Motion, which is on Amazon, there are the message of 12 emotions are in that book with how to apply them. And I'm in process now of writing those 12 books for more detail, but the essential
individual book. Okay.
Yeah, but the essential information is right there.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, I am going to be one of your first students for this program, because I am going to do the Anger Mastery Lifestyle Mentoring and Accountability Program. Hand of God, I'm taking it. Why not?
Okay.
I'm taking it.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's really cool.
I am all in.
Right. Well, so another way of looking at this is when you have purpose in your life, it's a good way to keep you going. So thank you for saving my life, Shannon.
Oh, wow. Wasn't expecting you to say that. And it was my pleasure. Well, you're a wonderful, wonderful woman with so much knowledge and so much insight, and stating it so simply, so easily understood. You don't make it all confusing and like a bunch of medical babble jabble, you know. It's just, it's all in us, it's all real, it's so achievable. And you just, in a very brief podcast, we're so easy to explain it. Could you imagine if someone dove deeper through your books, through your courses? We will absolutely be watching and supporting your TED Talk. Could you imagine how much better you could be internally and then outwardly if you took it a little deeper? Look what you've accomplished in less than an hour? That's amazing.
Well, the thing is, this is the really interesting thing. We're all born with emotions. We may actually experience them before birth, and they are with us all our lives. Even if you get Alzheimer's, you still have your emotions, right? The emotions that you feel. And so we pay so little attention. If I ask people, do you know why you have emotions? Most of us can't say. And yet it's part of each one of us, our whole life long, every day.
Every second of every day.
Right. And so it makes sense that we get to know this and get to be in charge of it. And the thing is that we get to direct where our emotions go and what emotions we have. I was talking to somebody recently and I said, something could happen and you might normally get angry about it. But once you're mastering anger, you will also have the choice. You could laugh about it. And it won't be a strain. It won't be a difficulty.
Sure. Eileen, I love you. I think you're amazing.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Oh. I honestly, I can't thank you enough. I enjoyed our introductory call. And this is the one I was looking forward to, because I just thought you were just so brilliant when I first met you. I'm so glad you came on Shannon Confidential. I'm so excited for the sharing of your message, what you've done, what you're currently doing, and what's coming in 2022. When your new books come out, when your courses and everything is available, please, 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 anything new, Eileen, I want to hear from you. Just send me a link, send me an email, send me something so I can keep following and encourage the listeners who remember you, because how could you possibly forget you, to continue following along on your journey, because, like you said, this earth is a big classroom, and we're never going to be done learning. So we want to keep learning from you.
Right. Well, we don't want to be done with the learning if we want to stay on the earth at any rate.
Yeah. So I just want to thank you Thank
Well,
you for
it's
your
been my
time.
pleasure.
I know you have to go to you have another call coming, so I want to give you some time to prepare. So I cannot thank you enough for being a guest on Shannon Confidential. And please promise me you will come back.
I will. And thank you so much, Shannon.
You're very welcome, Eileen.
Take care.
Hi, everyone. Look down. See the subscribe button? Go ahead and click it for me. I truly, truly appreciate your support. Thank you.